102.3 KJLH and KJLHradio.com. I'm Maya Hassan. And I brought some more help for us because, I'm just trying to help us get through this thing we called life. Today I have with us Miss Anna Ortega. She's the Assistant General Manager of the Los Angeles Housing Department. Miss Ortega, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time. And, since you're taking the time here, the fact that you are doing that, why do you think that the city of LA is so focused on trying to make sure that we as renters, because I'm a renter as well, a residential renter, why do you think you guys are so focused right now on trying to make sure that we know our rights as renters?
Well, renters in the city of Los Angeles enjoy a number of tenant protections that were adopted in order to ensure safe and decent living conditions and to protect tenants from excessive rent increases and especially illegal evictions. Also, tenants who are evicted through no fault of their own are entitled to relocation assistance to help them relocate. All of these laws are designed to help tenants stay safely housed, and it's important that residents know about their rights. And I think there's an extra focus at this time under the leadership of Mayor Karen Bass, and with her priority to reduce homelessness. Part of that is preventing homelessness and ensuring that we do everything we can to keep renters safely housed in their rental units.
I could appreciate that because rent and everything has been kind of getting out of control. And as a renter, you don't really know that you even have rights. We usually just kind of, if we get, an eviction notice, we just assume we're evicted and that's it. You don't really think that there's anything you can do. So if someone does receive an eviction notice, or I think unlawful detainer from their landlord, what do they do next?
So what tenants should do right away is not waste any time. They should act on any notice like this from their landlord immediately. If they receive an eviction notice, something in writing from their landlord saying that that the landlord wants to evict them, they should contact our department, the Los Angeles Housing Department, at 866-557-7368, or they can file a complaint online with the Los Angeles Housing Department on our website at housing.lacity.org. And when they do that, a housing investigator will be assigned to look at what they've received and counsel them about what to do, or even contact their landlord and inform their landlord that this eviction is an illegal eviction. So that's if they get an eviction notice. If a tenant receives what's called an unlawful detainer notice, which is a notice from the court saying that their landlord has filed an eviction action with a court, that's really important that the tenant respond to that immediately within 5 days. So it's important that they get legal help immediately. Legal help is available through our Stay Housed LA partnership and at the Stay Housed LA website, and that is at stayhousedla.org, or by calling 213-694-0040. And that's a program that helps counsel renters that are facing an eviction action and guides them through what to do next. And in some cases can also provide legal services to them to help them fight the eviction.
Okay, that's a good thing. Legal services is always great. Now I'm assuming, since you're here with us right now, that there are some more protections that are actually in place, some that are already existing. So what are some of these protections that are in place that can help us, stay housed?
Yes, so this is really important, and I'm really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the tenant protections that continue to exist in the city of Los Angeles. A number of protections were adopted during the COVID pandemic period that provided deep protections for city renters, but many of the factors of the protections are still in place now. Some of them were lifted at the end of January of 2023, but there's a number of things that are still there. One of them is that the city council adopted what's called a just cause evictions protections ordinance. As I mentioned, it became effective in January 2023, and it provides eviction protections to all renters citywide. This means that landlords have to have a legal reason in order to evict a renter. And tenants who are evicted for a no-fault reason, such as when the owner wants to move in, or a family member, they want to move in a family member, or they want to move in a resident manager. In that case, that could still be a legal eviction, but those renters are entitled to relocation assistance that ranges from $8,850 to $22,950. And that's financial assistance to help renters relocate. So that's one protection. Another one is under a new ordinance. Tenants in the city of Los Angeles who fall behind on their rent cannot be evicted unless their rental arrears exceeds 1 month's fair market rent for their size of rental unit. So for example, for a 2-bedroom rental unit, that rent level is $2,222. That means that they can't be evicted for non-payment unless what they owe exceeds that amount. Then there's another new protection that became effective in March of 2023, and that's called the Economic Displacement Ordinance. And what happens if a landlord wishes to impose a rent increase higher than 10% and the renter cannot afford it, and so then they would have to move, right, if they can't afford their rent. But under this new city law, the tenant can request relocation assistance in order to relocate. So that's really an expanded protection than anything that we've had before.
Okay.
And then
I'm sorry, go ahead, continue,
I
please.
have a couple more.
Yeah,
Council
no,
adopted a lot.
look, all the protections and everything that's out there possible, give them to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so under the pandemic rules, tenants who owe back rent from before September 30th, 2021, due to the financial impact of the COVID pandemic, they have until August 1st, 2023 to make up those rental arrears. So that's for rental debt accrued before September 30th, 2021. Then tenants who owe back rent from October 1st, 2021 through January 31st, 2023, so a later period of time that renters may have arrears for, they have until February 1st, 2024 to make up those rental arrears. And lastly, rent increases for tenants in rent-controlled units are disallowed until February 1st, 2024. So that's most rent increases for tenants in rent-stabilized units. And normally, they can be increased once a year.
The rent stabilized ordinance, that's pretty much the rent controlled.
Exactly.
How would somebody know if their apartments or their properties is a rent controlled or rent stabilized property?
Yes, the rent stabilization ordinance is a city's rent control law, as you mentioned, and it applies to rental units built before 1979, and it provides protections against excessive rent increases and illegal evictions, and requires relocation assistance for tenant not at fault evictions. And it has a number of other programs. To find out whether your rental unit is under the rent stabilization ordinance, there's a couple of ways. People can look online on the City of Los Angeles website under the planning department, under what's called ZIMAS, ZIMAS. The web address is https://zimas.lacity.org. Okay. So you can look there and put in the address and it will tell you if it's subject to the rent stabilization ordinance. Or we have another nifty new way. You can find out by text. You can text RSO to 855-800-7368. So that's a text thing. And when you do that, you type in the property address and then it will say RSO yes or no. Okay.
Okay. All right. I have another question for you. Let's say a person's rent is increased. All of a sudden I get a notice that my rent is increasing and I'm not really able to pay that. I can't afford it at the moment. Like, what then? What do I do after that?
So right now, and this is part of why we're really happy to speak with you and your listeners,
Mhm.
tenants, it's really important that they know that most rent increases are paused until February 1st, 2024.
Oh,
So many times right now that rent increase may be illegal. If so, they should file a complaint with us. Rent increases greater than 10% are not allowed for any rental unit built more than 15 years ago. For a
hmm.
newer unit, if a landlord wants to increase the rent by more than 10%, and again, if the tenant cannot afford it, then the tenant can request that instead, they can request relocation assistance from their landlord in order to move to a more affordable unit. So
Okay.
there's a number of protections. RSO units, there's no rent increases allowed right now. Rent increases greater than 10% are not allowed for anybody, any rental unit greater than 15 years old. And for newer ones, the tenant can request relocation assistance. So there's several protections. You want to find out what applies to you.
Okay. Now, speaking of the relocation assistance program, who actually pays for that?
The landlord is required to pay
The
for
landlord.
that. Again, that's generally for no fault evictions.
Okay.
Or now under these newer rules, if a landlord wants to increase the rent by more than 10% and the tenant can't afford it, then again, it's the landlord that has to pay the relocation assistance.
That's
Uh,
actually
mhm.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
that is a really good rule. That
The city
that-
has really tried to
yeah, I see
step
that.
up. Mhm.
That's, I mean, it is again, like I said, it's been very difficult. Cost of living in general, the development and everything in LA, all of that stuff has been very difficult on people, especially people who have been living in LA, um, and trying to keep up with everything. So this is absolutely outstanding. Now I do know that the as of it was supposed to be April 1st because of the pandemic and everything. Am I correct? April 1st was supposed to be where people were fully paying rent by that point. So,
Correct.
right. So now, because of the pandemic, what if people are still not in the position, still there, because we're still just trying to gather everything and get fully back to normal. What if they're not in the position to pay right now?
Well, they should be paying at least their current rent in order to avoid eviction.
Right. Okay.
But renters and landlords need to keep in mind that rental arrears owed through September 30th, 2021,
Right. Okay.
should be paid by August 1st, 2023. And renters have a little bit longer period to pay rental arrears from October 1st, 2021 through January 31st, 2023. That doesn't need to be paid until February 1st. And again, for rent stabilized units, which are those units built before 1979, there's no rent increases allowed right now.
Right.
So renters really need to do their very best to pay at minimum their current monthly rent. If
Right.
if they are unable to do that, they should approach their landlord and try to work out a repayment plan.
Okay. Okay. So that is a possibility, being able to talk to the landlord about a repayment plan. That's a possibility, depending on the landlord.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, if they're challenged and they're threatened with eviction for non-payment,
Mhm.
there are services available through the Stay Housed LA website.
Yeah. Okay.
So if they're facing problems there, in some cases, the eviction defense program can assist by negotiating with their landlord to pay the rental arrears so that the tenant doesn't have to be displaced.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, are there, after all of those different deadlines and everything, those different dates, are there any other deadlines that we as residents should know about? Anything coming?
So yes, August 1st, 2023 is when rental arrears, older rental arrears are due. And
Right.
then some rental arrears are due by February 1st, 2024. So those are important deadlines.
Okay. And you spoke of legal assistance earlier. Um, is there any, what is the legal assistance possible that you guys, I mean, that we can find there? Or are there any workshops? Are there any courses, classes, anything that we can actually go, to get more help other than right here?
Yes. So the Los Angeles Housing Department offers monthly workshops
Okay.
for both renters and landlords. You can find out information about what the current workshop is on the LAHD website at housing@lacity.org or by calling our landlord tenant hotline, which is at 866-557-7368. So those are workshops offered by the city, by the Los Angeles Housing Department. There's
You,
also
I'm sorry that you have a landlord tenant hotline. That is, I didn't know about that. That is amazing. I'm sorry. Continue, please.
oh yes, it's nine to 4 every day.
Okay. Landlord
Um,
tenant hotline. That's good to know.
mhm.
I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm sorry.
Sure. Workshops are also available through the Stay Housed LA network of community organizations. And information on those workshops are available again online at stayhousedla.org or by calling 213-694-0040. Legal assistance is available through the Stay Housed LA program. So that might be outreach and workshops and information. They have a tenant self-help tool on their website. They can provide sometimes limited legal assistance, and depending on where the tenant lives and the need in their area, they may be eligible for full legal services through the Stay Housed LA program. So that's kind of depending on the availability of resources and where the tenant lives.
Wow. Full assistance in that one. That's wow. Yeah, this is important that you guys are actually making sure that people know, because there's no way I would have known any of this. I had no idea about any of this. Is there like, I mean, you gave us a few phone numbers and a few websites. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that we could, that you can tell us about or anything like that?
Sure. We update our information all the time, and things are developing and being improved all the time. The city voters approved the United to House LA measure last fall, and we're starting to plan the use of that funding, and there's a significant amount of funding that's expected to become available through the United to House LA measure. The mayor's budget included $150 million for programs that expand protections. And all of those, we're beginning to plan those programs and services, in some cases that will expand some of the services that I've explained about. So it's worthwhile checking often on the housing department website. We try to update it as often as possible and as often as new programs and new protections become available. So www.housing@lacity.org, that's our site, and that's where we try to put all of the protections and information that is available.
That is wonderful. Miss Ortega, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, because trying to know all these things and trying to look at all these things up it's almost like you don't necessarily know where to start. Especially when you are kind of facing financial hardship, it can kind of get to be a bit much. So I really thank you for taking the time to, show our viewers and our listeners what they can do to protect themselves from eviction, or if an eviction does happen, the steps they can take. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us spread the word to our city residents.
Thank you.